I can do this.
Yo. Yo, it's a pretty good movie. I stumbled across it walking through Kukii's Mal profile because he's directed a video alternative, which is one of my favorite anime of all time. It's clearly not very highly regarded by the collective Mal community. The biggest problem seemed to be that this being an adaptation of Kukii Jar, it wasn't true enough to the original. This thing is so stupid. It can't be horror, it's not even scary. I don't even like the ending, so I wasn't very surprised to discover that it's actually great. It's clear from the very beginning that the movie doesn't take itself seriously at all. The side characters are such a piece of shit, and the monster is so ridiculous, and the way the main character kills the first one by shoving the drawer into it, and it just explodes with copious amounts of blood, and when the shark attacks, this company is stupid, and the slutty gorgons are all clothes torn off. Like, how could you possibly think this is generally trying to be scary? The bad CG and the really slow directing during action scenes, the greatest shots of people getting tossed over logs over and over again, all contribute to the B-movie experience. But then, 3/4 of the way through the movie, you think things can't possibly get any stupider. It hits you with some real-ass themes that make you think way harder about everything that's happened so far. How easy it is to manufacture negative feelings in the modern age, and how willing people are to let themselves become machines powered by their own misery, and how labeling people as too far gone and running away from their guts all anything. So when the movie ends on this really summer note, it actually works. Point is, a mass of people have different opinions than me, and this movie deserves better, so watch it! At the time of me writing this, there's a summer sale going on in the PlayStation Store. If you go to the under $15 category and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll find a game called Goner for $3. Just about any game is worth $3, right? Well, thankfully I wasn't proven wrong, but those $3 didn't carry me very far. Goner was one of those games where I enjoyed the first 10 minutes more than anything that came after. Just getting dropped in with such a minimalist presentation and piecing together everything my character could do was a truly benign experience. Every few moments my limits were broken and I was granted a new toy to learn to use. As I became familiar with all my capabilities, though, this feeling only diminished until new ones stopped coming and I thought, it's all downhill from here. Now there's nothing left but expectation. From the game, of course, to master what I have in order to continue to discover new things, but more importantly for myself, to prove that I'm capable of tackling everything the game throws at me in order to reach some nebulous point of satisfaction. Every new ability I discover as a result of my improvement brings me less joy than the last, as they increasingly become nothing more than another gimmick I have to master as part of some grander quest. The funny part is that I don't even know what the goal of that quest is supposed to be. Most of the time it's obvious. Beat the game. Even with other roguelikes, there's usually some vague, distant destination that you're supposed to be working towards, but Goner doesn't even give you that. The goal is nothing more than reaching something you haven't seen before. And even when I achieve that, my satisfaction lasts only for a second before realizing there are yet more tasks I have to complete. I often find myself playing games not for fun, but out of a sense of obligation to finish something I started. Actually experiencing the game becomes secondary to completing it, and I end up feeling exhausted when it's finally over. Generally, I can justify this way of thinking because of how prominently the games I enjoy present progress towards the end as the main goal of playing, but Goner just leaves me in limbo with no light at the end of the tunnel. It really forced me to confront my way of playing games, and whether I'm just ruining the experience for myself. This was the first time I'd played a game of this type that so explicitly tells the player that progress is secondary to having fun. If you can't enjoy aimlessly blasting things in the dark, then why are you even bothering to play this game? Those $3 might not have carried me very far, but they certainly got me more than I bargained for.
What the fuck? I feel a strange power emanating from the touching it right now. Circular just like how could it be? What's could this strange object be? What's so mysterious? What? I don't understand. What's going on? Why is this happening? I don't fucking understand.
Maybe what I'm about to say has been said 1,000 times already, but I haven't heard Origairu getting the credit I think it deserves from the people I respect, so I'm gonna say it anyway. There's a reason Hikigaya as a character has stuck with me way longer than the protagonist of any other meta high school rom-com that came out at around the same time, but it wasn't until my second viewing in the first season that I realized it was because of his being an unparalleled hypocrite. The clever thing is that the show appears to buy into his bullshit, showing most events exclusively from his perspective, so he is made to look like a cool guy when he's really just being a dick by virtue of not being able to remove his head from his own ass. But every once in a while, the show drops a subtle reminder that he's actually kind of pathetic. He claims not to care what others think of him, but on one occasion he is revealed to be keeping a daily journal of all the instances upon which his peers have slighted him. He claims that his motto is to be true to himself, no matter what, but the whole reason his personality is like this in the first place is because everyone in his middle school thought he was weird and creepy to the point where he internalized those ideas about himself. Then, in a hilariously misguided act of prideful self-preservation, he embraced those ideas about himself in defiance of everyone labeling those personality traits as creepy, which only further causes his peers to see him as such, which in turn continuously reassures him that this is just the way he is, and that to try to change for the better would mean admitting defeat and betraying his true self. It's pretty funny when you think about it. I see Origairu as a sort of immersive critique of Hiki's extremely self-centered mindset. Over the course of the first season, he repeatedly tries to help people resolve their personal issues with his nihilistic outlook, and he generally succeeds, but only partially. He fails to realize that his methods only work because other people are there to pick up his slack. Ultimately, Origairu is a show about communication. Every main character is clearly restricted by a worldview informed by their past experiences, and the way that they judge and interact with others around them is based on that worldview. The fantasy of Origairu is one where everyone's perspective is easily understood, and can be used to overcome the kind of miscommunication that most of the show's conflict arises from. Yukino works so well as a foil to Hiki because, while he hypocritically believes in stubborn self-love, she hypocritically believes in relentless self-improvement. In her mind, not constantly striving to be a better version of yourself is doing a disservice to not only yourself, but also the rest of society. Despite her grandstanding, however, she seems to take for granted that she is categorically the best person in the room most of the time, not even considering that she might stand to learn something from someone else instead of the other way around. She wants everyone to be as perfect as they can be, but the only metric for perfection she acknowledges is her own. And of course, neither Yukino nor Hiki would ever get anything done without Yui and her totally genuine, empathetic way of thinking. It's because its characters are so well defined that Origairu can be consistently entertaining, even when the rest of the show is pretty standard issue. That's just about it, but there are two more characters I want to talk about that exemplify this strength. Hayato and Miura are the respective king and queen of the school, and represent two different ways to reach the top of the teenage social hierarchy. Hayato was ordained ruler practically by divine birthright. He's handsome, charming, friendly, athletic, intelligent, and an all-around great guy, so being popular and beloved come naturally to him. He's not particularly conscious of his position as lord, which tells me that he's never really had to fight to keep his crown, and none of the other guys in the school complain about his rule because no one can think of a better person to replace him. Everyone around him is treated with respect and a smile because he probably very rarely encounters problems he can't solve that way. It's as if he was destined to be at the top of the high school food chain. Yura, on the other hand, has had to fight tooth and nail for her crown. She has the face of a hardened veteran, has no doubt defeated dozens of other catty bitches on her quest to become Queen Bee, and now that she's succeeded, she'll be damned if she lets some other slut take her throne. Because interaction with other girls has served as her battleground for social advancement for so long, she has become unable to see it as anything other than that. Every other pretty girl around her is a threat to her rule, and she takes every opportunity she can to put them down and reinforce their position below her on the ladder. As long as she has Hayato on her arm, no one can dispute her right to the crown. She's ruthless, snarky, snide, and sometimes even cruel, but all her years at war have given her a better intuitive understanding of human emotions than anyone else in the show her age. None of this is actually stated in the show. I've only inferred this reading of their characters by analyzing the way they act. Maybe you interpreted them differently. Let me know in the comments if you have a different opinion on how based Miura came to be the way she is.